Hey everybody, we got some more stuff to talk about. This is awesome. So someone asked a question about creation and what exactly the Catholic Church teaches about creation and how that compares to what science teaches about creation or evolution, I suppose, because science wouldn't really talk about creation necessarily, or at least not someone who's not religiously minded or doesn't have, someone who's an atheist wouldn't talk about creation, would just talk about things existing. So anyway, so people asked this question, and I actually have made another video that kind of refers to this a little bit, and I'll actually put a link to that video in the description of this video so that if you want to cross-reference and that kind of thing. So I'm actually not going to talk about all the sources I used in that last video because you can watch that and then you can also watch this one if you want. So I've got a number of sources that I use though. So one, the maybe main source that I'm looking at is this really big book. It's called It's called A Catholic Introduction to the Bible. So this thing is awesome. And there's actually I don't know, one of those dust covers or whatever that you usually call something that would go over the top. So if you bought it, it wouldn't look like this. It would look like something else, and I forgot to grab the thing. So anyway, whatever. It's this really great book written by a collection of Catholic, or a couple of Catholic scholars, Brant Petrie and John Bergsma, who are among the best in the world today, at least in the English-speaking world today. Maybe the best in the world. But anyway, so I'll use from this, not this entire thing. This covers the entire Old Testament. I also have an article from Catholic Answers. So if you don't know this, there's a really great website. It seems like it's a really cheesy thing, Catholic.com. But this website, Catholic Answers, these guys they make a living off of defending and explaining the Catholic faith to people. And then, of course, we'll look at something from some passages from the Catechism. This is, a compendium or a collection, a summary of what the Catholic Church teaches. And then I also want to just make a quick reference, I guess, to this Ignatius Catholic Study Bible, so about the book of Genesis. So obviously, this is the primary thing we're talking about, is the creation of everything, or the beginning of everything. And so of course, it makes sense to look at the book of Genesis, so I learned a number of things just from this one Catholic introduction to the Old Testament. So the book of Genesis actually is a Greek word. Genesis is a Greek word, which is kind of fascinating, because if you're familiar with the Old Testament, you know that it was written mostly in Hebrew. A huge portion of it, like almost all of it, was written in Hebrew. And so it's kind of funny that we give it a Greek name, Genesis, rather than the Hebrew name, which I have written down here is called Bereshit, which is in the beginning, the very first words of this book, Bereshit. But the people have translated the Hebrew into Greek. We call that the Septuagint, and from the Septuagint we get the name Genesis. So anyway, so that's kind of a neat thing. So what's the deal? Okay, let's get right to the point. What is it that Catholics believe about the beginning of everything? Are we allowed to believe in evolution? Are we limited to believing in creationism? Or I guess if a person was looking at it from a scientific perspective and saying, well, gosh, the scientific evidence seems like evolution is definitely it. Maybe doesn't even seem like it. It's like, this is obviously it. Are we allowed to believe in creationism? What's the deal? So to be absolutely clear, there are a number of things. Actually, so this Catholic Introduction to the Old Testament lists out 6 things that are non-discussable, non-negotiables for us as Catholic Christians as far as what we believe. Beyond that, there is a lot of freedom to decide for ourselves what it is that we think. And the main point I want to get across here is that when we're talking about the book of Genesis, when we're talking about this thing here, or the Bible in general, but when we're talking specifically about the book of Genesis, we are not speaking about a science book. The Bible is not trying to teach us science, but science tries to teach us science. And so I think that's just a really helpful thing to point out, because people will read about these first 6 days of creation in Genesis chapter 1, and they'll wonder, is this must be it. And so they'll naturally say, well, I have to believe in this instantaneous creation, because that's what the Bible teaches, and the Bible teaches factual truth all the time, which no, actually, the Bible's not trying to teach us. Now, I'm not saying that the Bible is false, and this is kind of where things are a little bit I don't know, tricky isn't really the right word, but this is what we're saying, is that what the Bible teaches is true, and for that matter, the event that it's speaking of in creation is true, even if not scientifically detailed. So one author, if you look at the other video, one author that I make a quote of talks about how like the way they communicated truth in biblical times, the book of Genesis, is not the same exact way that we communicate truth today. We tend to be so focused on like details and getting every little detail right and every little thing. And like because we pull out our phones and we want to record everything just so we can get every little movement, every little motion. This author, he kind of makes a slight joke. He's like, there's not a camcorder in the Garden of Eden. So they're not interested in getting all the same details like we're interested in getting all the same details. And so I think we just want to be really careful about trying to read the Bible with 21st century eyes. That's a really important thing. Okay, so what are these 6 non-negotiables that we as Catholic Christians believe? So I'll put them on the screen, but here they are. So we as Catholic Christians must believe that there is an initial creation from nothing. This comes from the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 327, that God creates ex nihilo, from nothing. There's nothing, like there's no stuff that exists before God creates. He creates it all from nothing. The second, the infusion of a spiritual soul into the first man, thus differentiating him from the animal. So this article from Catholic Answers actually makes a really good point, and I'll put a link to that in the video as well. Is that we are allowed to believe in the evolution or the development of the human body, that there's something about the human body that perhaps has developed over time. But we are not allowed to believe in the evolution of the human soul. So we don't know exactly the timing that took place, but we believe that when the timing was just right, according to whether it was like an instantaneous creation or whether it's evolution of the human body over time, we believe that when the timing was just right, God creates the human soul. And he does that for each and every one of us, in fact. And our development or our understanding of this now is that each person is given a soul at their conception. This is why, like, when we talk about, like, abortion in the church, we're so against abortion because this isn't just a clump of cells, but this is a human person who's been given a soul to be united with their body. And so we don't want to just destroy that person because that person is a beloved creature of God. And that's so important. So if we want to go all the way back to the beginning, maybe the timing was a little bit different, perhaps. Because who knows when God put the soul into those people at the beginning, those first 2 people, Adam and Eve, but we believe that he did put them a soul. So we must believe in the infusion of a spiritual soul into the first man, thus differentiating him from all the other animals. So again, that comes from the Catechism. Third, we must believe in a historical first human couple from which all people are descended. So there's different ways that people want to talk about this. There's what we call monogenism or polygenism. So monogenism talks about how everyone comes, like what this point says. Monogenism is when everyone comes from this one first couple. Polygenism is that there's a bunch of first humans, and so that bunch creates all of the rest of humans. So we as Catholic Christians believe in monogenism, not polygenism. And the reason for that actually is because what flows from it is our doctrine of original sin. And how our first parents sin, and because our first parents sin, they pass on that trait, or they pass on that state of being in sin to all other humans. Whereas if there's polygenism and only like one of the first couples sins against God and the others don't, well, then that means you end up with some humans who do not inherit the stain or the trait or the state of sin, and others who do inherit the state of sin. And so then things get complicated, things get a little bit messy. So anyway, so we must believe in monogenism, that all humans come from one first couple who the Bible names Adam and Eve. Fourth, the state of original holiness constituted by harmony between the first couple and all creation, as well as a condition in which man would not have to suffer or die. So again, sin does take place in Genesis chapter 3, but there are 2 chapters that come before Genesis chapter 3. And so for us as Catholic Christians, and I think this is probably a all Christian thing, but I don't know, I haven't studied all the other religions, but for us as Catholic Christians, we believe that in Genesis chapters 1 and 2, so the timing, we don't really know the timing, but before sin, there was a time before sin when human beings existed. And because it was before sin, they were not at war against God. They were not at war against creation. They had no fear of animals. They had no grumbling against the weather. They didn't despise each other. In fact, the Bible tells us that they were naked, and yet they did not know shame. because there was this original holiness where they were able to see purely. They were able, made in the image and likeness of God. They were actually able to be living representatives of God. So that's actually a really cool thing. And so this actually brings about, as it says, a harmony with them and the rest of creation. Fifth, we must believe in a historical fall of the first human couple, which is a decision of our first parents to reject God. We must believe in this, that this first couple, they fell, or they commit the first sin. So this is where, if you ever hear the phrase the fall or original sin, this is what we're talking about. In Genesis chapter 3, you could read that chapter and talk about how this serpent, this subtle serpent, seduces our first parents, tricks them into sinning against God, into rebellion against God, which causes all kinds of terrible consequences for the human race, and for that matter, for all of creation. It breaks our relationship with God, and it breaks our relationship with each other. It breaks our relationship with the rest of creation. It breaks our relationship with ourselves. And it places us in this place of spiritual slavery. St. Paul says this, that all people are under the power of sin as a result of this first fall. And then sixth, we must believe in the transmission of original sin by propagation to all humankind from the first man and woman. So we must believe in this, that because of this state of sin, now whenever they have children, they pass on this state of sin. And when they have children, they pass on this state of sin. Just like my parents passed on my hair color and my eye color and my height and all those different things, so too they passed on to me the state of sin. Unfortunately, thanks mom and dad, I appreciate that. They got it from their parents, and they got it, so like that's just kind of how it works. And you inherited the same thing. So those are the 6 things that we must believe as Catholic Christians if we are going to profess and believe in the Catholic Christian faith. Beyond that, this book says that apart from these and any related teachings that are de fide, that are from our faith, the Church permits wide discussion on the issue of origins, but urges that the discussions be balanced. So this is a really helpful thing, I think, is to suggest or to point out that, yes, the Church is seeking to allow us freedom, actually, to discover with the help of science, to discover with the help of the Bible, with the help of our faith, with the help of our doctrine that we do have and that we must believe, allowing us the freedom actually to kind of make up our own mind about it with an educated sense, like I don't want to just spout out what I think is true if I haven't actually looked at the evidence for certain things. And for that matter, I don't want to ignore evidence for certain things. Now, at the same time, I don't want to be unbalanced in what I'm doing. If I'm seeking to understand something from a religious perspective, it's actually good and helpful for me to bring science into the picture. But I don't want to go so far in the scientific information, the scientific data, that I totally begin to ignore what is revealed in Scripture or what is taught by the Church. So I want to be balanced in the way that I do this. We believe that faith goes above reason, but at the same time, faith should never actually be contradicted by something that is truly reasonable or something that is truly logical. In other words, faith, yes, it makes sense when you have it, but it can't not be logical. I don't know if I said that right, but that's what I'm getting at, is that faith and reason actually are meant to work together. They don't have to compete against each other. Even though at some point there is a moment where faith has to say, okay, but this is reasonable, but I actually believe this to be true. Not just that I can see that it's reasonable, but I believe this, and I actually even know it because in faith is what the evidence of things hoped for, the knowledge of things unseen. So anyway, so that I think is a helpful thing. Now a couple other things just to point out. So I don't know how much longer this video will go on, but something that I actually think is really neat is what is the Bible trying to communicate? What is this creation story trying to communicate to us? And something that I found in this introduction to the Old Testament talks about. Well, actually, so let's just bring in this quote real quick from the Ignatius Catholic Study Bible. So this is really cool. They sell individual books of this. Specifically the Old Testament. They have a really big New Testament one as well. But anyway, so this is really cool. So this quote, and I quote this in the other video as well. But it says, all things considered, Genesis chapters 1 through 11 may be regarded as historical in substance, but mythopoeic in expression. Its narrative is anchored in realities and events of the past, and yet its description of those events makes use of the poetic symbolism and figurative modes of speech that once had a broad currency in biblical times. this is pointing out that again, the way that they communicated history was not that they just made stuff up, but that there were, like, we're talking about the creation of everything, about God beginning to speak his love into existence. When God does that, that's the kind of thing that, like, it doesn't do it justice to just tell you the bare facts. I have to use this exalted form of language, like poetry or singing a song. You think about this, like when you fall in love, what do you want to do? You don't want to just like say like, well, I have feelings for this person. No, it's like there's something inside of me that just wants to sing, or there's something inside of me that wants me to just start floating away, because that's what love does. It brings everything up to another level, higher. A higher kind of level than just simply telling you the facts of something, and that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. So one way that this introduction to the Old Testament describes it is that God is like, he's creating like this cosmic temple. And when he's creating this cosmic temple, well, he has to do something, because why? The book of Genesis tells us that the earth was without form and it was void. That is to say, it was formless and it was empty. And so if you look then at the order of creation in day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, and then day 7, of course, is the day of rest. But if you look at this, in the first 3 days, the author tells us that God provides form for the earth. What does he provide? He provides time. So he provides day and night. And then in the second day, he provides space. He provides light and darkness, and then he provides water, he provides land. He provides a separation between the sky and the rest of the earth and the waters. And then in day 3, he provides habitation. That is, that he provides land which grows vegetation. He provides that kind of stuff. So then in day 4, what does he do? He begins to provide. He begins to fill in that form. So just like in day 1, what does he do? He creates the realm of the light and the darkness, and now he begins to provide rulers for the light and the darkness. He provides the sun and the moon and the stars. You see how like now the sun is there to rule the light, and the moon is there to rule the darkness with the stars. And then on day 5, he provides what? He provides birds to inhabit the sky. And he provides fish to inhabit the sea below. So this second thing where he provides space, now he puts things into that space. And then on the 6th day, he provides animals. And above all, he provides what? He provides man to have true habitation in this place where habitation is possible. So anyway, so I think it's just this really cool thing. And so then, of course, on the 7th day, the day that is higher than all the other days, he provides rest and worship. This Sabbath, this day that he sets aside for his purposes, for his glory. And in doing that, he calls us, humans, made in his image and likeness, to what? To represent him on earth. And so to model on earth his pattern of creation, which I think is just really cool. And I know we're probably getting a little far afield as far as like, talking about like, was it creation or evolution? But again, I think if we want to look at it from this sense of like, the author is trying to communicate to us in a poetic way what exactly God is up to when he creates everything. Then I think to try to get this image of like, well, this is the image that he's trying to provide is not like scientific knowledge about everything that took place, but he's trying to provide for us this understanding of who we are. And what this earth is, what this world is that he's created. And that it's all ultimately meant to be oriented toward him, toward resting with him, toward worshiping him. And it's all meant to be oriented for us to turn toward him. Like this is the wild thing, is that the human person is his favorite creature. So anyway, so that's just like an image that he provides for us. Now, I want to get back to our first question that we asked. This like, okay, what's the deal here? What I find to be really helpful is that some of the saints actually have debated about whether these first chapters of the book of Genesis are symbolic, merely symbolic, or whether they are literal, factual. So there's actually saints on both sides of the equation. So check this out. So this comes from who does it come from? Saint Ephrem the Syrian. This is what he says. So let no one think that there is anything allegorical in the works of the 6 days. No one can rightly say that the things that pertain to these days were symbolic, nor can anyone say that they were meaningless names or that other things were symbolized for us by their names. Rather, let us know in just what manner heaven and earth were created in the beginning. And then Basil the Great talks about this. He says, there are those truly who do not admit the common sense of the scriptures, for whom water is not water, but some other nature, who see in a plant, in a fish, what their fancy wishes, who change the nature of reptiles and of wild beasts to suit their allegories. So allegory would be like an analogy type of thing, like symbolic language. Like the interpreters of dreams who explain visions in sleep to make them serve their own ends. For me, grass is grass, plant, fish, wild beast, domestic animal. I take all in the literal sense. For I am not ashamed of the gospel. He's quoting St. Paul there, where he's like, look, I know people want to debate about this, but I'm not ashamed of this, actually. That's what he's saying. So that's kind of a fascinating thing, actually, is that these saints here, they would say, actually, no, like, I believe that what is written is true, that it's meant to be taken in a literal sense, this order of creation. That's a fascinating thing. Other saints, though, would actually say that this. So this is what This is what Origen of Alexandria, one of the church fathers. He's a pretty influential church father. He says this: to what person of intelligence, I ask, will the account seem logically consistent that says there was a first day and a second and a third, in which also evening and morning are named, without a sun, without a moon, and without stars, even in the case of the first day without a heaven? So here he's talking about how the sun and the moon and the stars are created on the fourth day. So how is it possible to have 3 days before then? That's what he's saying. It's like, so who sees that as sensible, as logical? In other words, he's like, it can't be a literal, factual point here that's coming on. So another person, St. Augustine, who's obviously pretty influential. What does he say? He says, the Creator, after all, about whom Scripture told this story of how he completed and finished his works in 6 days, is the same as the one about whom it is written elsewhere, and assuredly without there being any contradiction, that, quote, he created all things simultaneously together, from the book of Sirach. And consequently, the one who made all things simultaneously together also made simultaneously together these 6 or 7 days, or rather this one day 6 or 7 times repeated. So then what need was there for the 6 days to be recounted so distinctly and methodically? It was for the sake of those who cannot arrive at an understanding of the text. He created all things together simultaneously, unless Scripture accompanies them more slowly, step by step, to the goal to which it is leading them. So Augustine is getting at the same thing, which Origen made. Is like, no, the Bible also tells us in another point that he made all things at once. And so we don't need to believe in the literal 6 days. So you see how so much gets back to this 6 days, which is called the hexameron, which is just I think the Greek term for these 6 days. So anyway, so you see here there are saints on both sides, and the church gives us freedom to decide. In fact, there's one saint who's actually on both sides of the equation, like not at the same time, at different points in his life. So the Saint Thomas Aquinas, earlier in his life, he was on the side of more allegory. He's on the side of symbolic, poetic language. But then later on in his life, something must have changed for him, where he became more literal in his understanding of what took place. So anyway, that's just kind of a cool thing. And I think that's helpful for you and for me to understand that we have freedom to decide, freedom to weigh the evidence, and not to ignore science, actually, but to use science as a complement to what the Bible teaches, so that when I look at what the Bible teaches and when I look at what science says, I can make an educated understanding, provided what? Provided that I stick with those 6 things that I mentioned before, which must be held to be true. So if ever my pursuit of what's going on here leads me astray from believing these 6 things, then I need to very quickly and very directly renounce that in the name of Jesus and come back in faith to a place where I can hold what I believe, as well as hold what the church believes. That's super important for us. If ever I go astray and want to go down a road that the church does not want me to go down or does not permit me to go down, I need to stop what I'm doing in my tracks, turn around, and get back on the path that the church provides for me. That's super important. It's just a little bit of a warning, I suppose. At the same time, yes, you are free. You are free to discern, to seek evidence, to pursue what you think is best and helpful for you. So anyway, I hope you find this helpful. I'm gonna provide I'll provide quotes on the screen, which you'll see, I guess, and I'll provide a link for a couple of these things so that you can just dive in and see a little bit more about what the church teaches. Okay, I hope this was helpful for you. If you know other people who wonder about what the church teaches about the creation of everything, if you know someone who's like super scientifically minded, and that actually closes them off to believing what the church believes, maybe you want to share this with them. If you have someone who's wrestling with it, like they're not sure what to do, maybe you share this with them as well. So anyway, there you go. I hope and pray that was helpful for you, and I'll look forward to sharing more videos with you. God bless you.